So in this lesson, what we're going to learn about is understanding organizations as customers. A lot of this will look at it from a perspective of a business to business, how businesses interact with each other and market to each other versus actually business to consumer, directly to individuals that go to maybe retail stores or online stores and end up purchasing the final product. If you talk about buying specifically, which is a lot of what we are going to talk about in this lesson, buying is marketing too. We've got to look at it from different perspectives in different industries. So in the case of paper suppliers, a lot of us, you might get in your mail J.C. Penney, and J.C. Penney sends out a lot of flyers. You've got Burger King and other retailers and coupon savers that you get these flyers and mailers. And the paper suppliers, when companies like J.C. Penney have to look at paper suppliers, they've got to consider many things when they purchase that paper to print on and the final product that ends up in your mail. You're looking at criterion such as appearance, quality, quantity, price, the capacity to deliver on time because it is a timely thing, and meet deadlines, life cycles of the paper, is it certified, etc. So business marketing by definition, the marketing of products and services to companies, governments, or nonprofit organizations for use in the creation of products and services that they can produce and market to others. Organizational buyers. These are broken up into 5 different markets, but organizational buyers are those manufacturers, wholesalers, retailers, and government agencies that buy goods and services for their own use or for resale. So that's broken down by industrial markets, reseller markets, wholesalers, retailers, and government markets. So one of the things that the government does is they created something called a NAICS code, and the Census Bureau uses these NAICS codes to classify and organize establishments in the United States. This is a chart from 2007, and it's broken down into 3 different ways. Either it's an industrial market, a reseller market, or a government market. So you can kind of see in the industrial markets, you've got your agriculture, mining, utilities, construction, and so on. And services are in there as well. But your reseller market are your wholesalers and retailers, and your government markets consist of your government units. But let's look into it a little bit more. But before we do that, we should go over the definition of what the NAICS is. NAICS stands for the North American Industrial Classification System. So this is a standard used by the federal statistical agencies classifying business establishments. It's a way for them to identify, classify, and track these agencies or business establishments in the United States. What they're used to do is to gauge the size of one or more industrial, reseller, or government markets globally. It measures economic activity related to the U.S. business economy. So if you break it down a little bit more, this is a very particular example for the information industry sector, which is the NAICS code 51. And you'll notice that if you start from the left, you've gone from the 2-digit to 3-digit industry subsector. So in information industries sector, you've now got publishing industries except the internet, motion picture and sound recording industries, and broadcasting except the internet. And that added a 1, 2, and 5 at the end of it. So if we chose broadcasting, it moves to a 4-digit industry group in broadcasting, whether it's radio and television broadcasting or cable and other subscription. We added a number. If we chose radio, that breaks down to radio broadcasting and television broadcasting. And then if we went from radio broadcasting and we chose, then you've got radio networks and radio stations. And each time we go more and more into the industry, we add a digit for that industry group and subsector and subgroup. Yeah, that's in there. And this is how we classify and track business agencies in establishments in the United States. So we have to look at the characteristics of organizational buying. It's comprised of derived demand, the size of order or purchase, the number of potential buyers in the market, and organizational buying objectives. And we'll go over that. So starting off, the demand. Consumer demand is affected by price and availability, and by consumers' personal taste and discretionary income. They've got to be able to buy it. They've got to have the taste for it, and that's something that they want. Remember, we were tying back to the first slides where we were talking about wants and needs in marketing. And then, of course, price and availability, which is your price and place, the two P's of the marketing mix, relate to consumer demand. And derived demand, the demand for industrial products and services that is driven by or derived from the demand for consumer products and services. So an example for Weyerhaeuser pulp and paper products, consumer demand for print, seasonal mail, or diapers. When we have a baby boom, um, these things are going to drive the demand. And seasonal is a huge part, because when Black Friday and Christmas sales come around, you're going to see a lot more mailers and retailers sending out those Black Friday deals and those Christmas deals for the holidays, as people want to buy stuff for their loved ones or get a really great deal on items that are going to go out of season, or just get them for very, very cheap. And this is another graph that shows the key characteristics and dimensions of organizational buying behavior. But we won't go into too much detail, but we can start with the bottom for the marketing mix characteristics, because that's a big part of the class that I want you to get down. But if you look at buying behavior when it relates to marketing mix characteristics, direct selling to organizational buyers is the rule, and distribution is very important. So direct selling is going to be right with the promotions side of it, and distribution is the place. Promotions, place. Both of those are part of the marketing mix. Advertising and other forms of promotion are technical in nature. That's also a part of the promotion side of it. Price is often negotiated. It's evaluated as a broader seller and product service qualities, and frequently affected by quantity discounts. So in this case, whether it's a wholesaler or a retailer, price is going to be a huge part of that product being sold, the amount that's going to be sold. If there's any discounts related to that price, that's going to determine how much the wholesalers and retailers are going to buy and resell to the end consumer. So if you look at it, profit responsibility, there are many things that relate to it. Starting from the bottom left, you've got the warranty and claim policies that go into buying criteria. When wholesalers or retailers are buying these products in bulk to sell to us, they've got to look at warranty and claim policies. Like, if the product comes in and they get a bad batch and consumers continue to return the products and ask for refunds, that's gonna hurt them. So warranty and claim policies are going to be huge a part of that. Technical capability. Whoever's selling the product, can they make more? Can they meet the supply? Are we going to be able to produce a high quality product with the equipment that they have? The price. We've got to look at the bottom line in the price of whether we can afford it, and put a markup on there and sell it back right into the market to the end consumer. Quality specifications, of course, we want to make sure that the product is of certain standards, and there's a quality in it. There's quality control that's related to it. So for example, toys coming from China don't have lead or some other chemical components on them that will make children sick. Delivery schedules, that's extremely important. Can the retailer or the wholesaler be able to get the items on time or distribute on time so that it gets to the consumer on time? They've got to look at past performance. What's their record on the market? Yes, they may be the largest distributor of, for example, beverages, but do the stores and do the customers and the clients get them on time? Have they had quality control issues? Were any of the products damaged? These past performance is a big part of whether or not organizations will buy from other retailers or wholesalers. And then once again, last but not least, your production facilities and capacity. If it's a really popular item on the market, can you guarantee purchase, or can you guarantee production and meeting the quantities that people that are required for retailers to be able to sell? A perfect example is it. Every time I feel like that happens is when the iPhone and Galaxy phones come out. because there's always a shortage in the beginning because people camp out for these products. Right now, we're in the graphics card shortage of 2021, where if you want to build a computer or have a graphics card, um, good luck, because it will be very, very difficult for you to get one, because of COVID, because of everyone's fighting for scarce resources. You have logistics, entire companies going into like a bare bones group of people running it, and so on and so forth. A lot of that goes into it. And it all ties into profit responsibility and buying criteria for businesses. So product supplier selection criteria for buying machine vision equipment emphasize factors other than price. So this is an example. So you've got on the left side here, it's a machine vision inspection camera. That's the product or the equipment used in the auto industry to perform a gear inspection. So as it goes onto the line, these cameras in a very, very quick amount of time look at the product to make sure if there's anything wrong with it, and whether or not they need to pull it from the assembly line. It's a part of their quality control. So if you look at the chart on the right, this is the percentage of machine vision buyers citing individual selection criteria as important when making supplier decisions. So if you look at it, it makes sense because performance is key. It has to make sure that this camera definitely performs and works right and does what it's intended to do, which is inspect the camera or inspect the gear that they are making for this automobile. Technical support, that's a huge part too, because if anything goes wrong with this, because the business relies on this quality control and this inspection, technical support has to be a huge part. If something goes down, is someone going to come out and fix it? Is someone going to take a look at it, or do I have to like call a corporate number and go through 5 different buttons and sub menus to finally get to talk to someone? How easy is it to use? How easy is it to set up? That's a question too. And does it require someone and a whole team to come in and install it into our assembly line, or can we do it ourselves? The complete solution that includes the software. That's a huge part too. Is the software easy to install? Is it something that we can put together and figure out? Ruggedness, customization ability. Can it withstand my factory conditions and the environment that it's going to perform in? Customization ability. Can we customize it to whatever gear and whatever part and whatever assembly line that we have out there? And then finally, you come down to price, and it's like, how well? Okay, this is all great. What's the price? What's the cost that it's going to be? And then the integration expertise. Once again, in this automobile industry or assembly line or factory, how easy is it to integrate? And can we become experts in it? Do we need training? Is someone else going to take care of it for us? These are things that they have to ask. A full tool set. Do we get, if you install it? I mean, if we don't subscribe with you to take care of it and have some sort of warranty or technical team to be able to fix it, you guys give a full tool set where we can fix it and we can take a look at it. And last but not least is speed. How fast can we produce the products that we do as far as these gears, and how fast can this machine inspection keep up with that? So this is a perfect example of the products and supplier selection criteria. And this is, in a sense, if you go back to our previous slides, we talked about it. This is a part of a consideration set, just like the ones we were considering back then when we did an example of like the different phones, like the Apple, the Samsung, the Motorola Razr, and so on and so forth. And this is exactly another way to look at it from business to business, as far as their selection criteria for buying machine vision equipment. So when we talk about supplier development, it's a deliberate effort by organizations to build relationships that shape the supplier's products, services, and capabilities to fit a buyer's needs and those of the customers. So if you look at John Deere and Deere and Company, that makes the tractors and outdoor equipment, they hire a supplier development team or person, and engineers that they hire improve their efficiency and quality to reduce their costs. So this team that they hire, they make sure that they build not only the relationships between suppliers and the company, but that they all fit the needs of the company, but eventually at the end to the end consumer as well for their machinery and product. So reciprocity, when we talk about reciprocity, we're talking about an industrial buying practice in which two organizations agree to purchase each other's products and services. So the question I had is, in theory, this is a good thing, but I have worked as in the Lighthouse for the Blind in Corpus Christi, and the question is, how can this be a bad thing? So when we talk about the buying practice between two organizations to produce each other's products and services, if you think about it, many of the tactical manufacturers out there, they may be making these tactical gloves that can take extreme environments, harsh environments in use, in rugged use, right? So they're going to partner with certain plastic suppliers, certain cloth suppliers, to make that and then eventually assemble and stitch it, right? So going from raw goods to a processed finished good. So Lighthouse for the Blind, what they do is they create the gloves for mechanical pilots, and that they work on the Black Hawk helicopters and so on and so forth. So the machinery that they use is machinery that they used back in World War II, and that machinery is used and made with or by those that are blind or disabled. And you have the government now agreeing to purchase these gloves from the Lighthouse for the Blind at a much higher cost because of the labor that goes into it, at a less amount of quantity, because the efficiency is not key for a nonprofit. It's to keep disabled Americans having jobs and being contributable members of a society. So when you think about it from a production efficiency standpoint, it doesn't make sense to partner with the Lighthouse for the Blind for these mechanics gloves. But under the JWAD Act, there is an agreement to purchase each other's products and services between the government and military and the Lighthouse for the Blind to create this one particular product. But in an ideal environment, the way it would work is, for the military to be able to find someone that can mass produce these pilots' gloves or these mechanical gloves at a much higher production rate, which would eventually be much cheaper. So there are pros and cons to it, and we have to look at it from both sides, and this is an example of that. Supply partnership. It's a relationship that exists when a buyer and its supplier adopt mutually beneficial objectives, policies, and procedures for the purpose of lowering the cost or increasing the value of products and services delivered to the ultimate consumer. So if we look at an example with Harley-Davidson, Milsco Manufacturing, delivering a great ride for customer seats. So Milsco Manufacturing has been producing motorcycle seats for over 81 years for Harley-Davidson. So this is probably close to 90 years now, because this data was, I think, at least 6-7 years ago. So the company Milsco Manufacturing understands the form, fit, and functionality of Harley-Davidson's products, which is the motorcycle. And they know that exactly the form, the shape, how it's going to fit and be able to be screwed on and placed in the assembly line for these bikes. So their design is effective and their production is efficient because they are making it exactly for a particular model of Harley-Davidson. And this is a perfect example between with a supplier relationship, especially when the final product is a wonderful motorcycle coming from Harley-Davidson. Another example when it comes to food, we're looking at something called sustainable procurement for sustainable growth. And so this is a picture of coffee beans that are grown, and a lot of, we talked about, Starbucks and one of their value strategies being that coffee they have to produce the best coffee on the market. That's their value strategy. And so Starbucks, whose entire business, their bread and butter, is making great coffee, which comes from coffee beans, which is the raw material that's used. It is in Starbucks' interest to make sure that this supply is continuous and that they continue to have coffee beans to be able to sell. So when we talk about sustainable procurement, the bottom line is benefiting the environment. So we don't want to use and use and use and use and then have nothing left. And then what are we going to do? Starbucks understands that because once again, we talked about this concept before that resources are scarce, and as humans are going to evolve and continue to live and grow in population, it will become scarcer and scarcer. So we have to have something sustainable so that the supply that we have to make sure that the future and in the future we can still have this product to be able to make and sell. So once again, depletion of natural resources can kill an organization. So Starbucks, what they do is they give a fair price for their coffee beans to these farmers and invest in the very farming communities where coffee beans are produced, which is perfect, and they should be doing it anyway because giving fair pricing is one thing, but another thing is for them to be able to create higher quality coffee beans, more coffee beans, and make sure that the crop yield is high. They're going to invest in equipment. They're going to invest in infrastructure. They're going to invest in things as like road and electricity and other amenities and features and benefits and products and equipment to make sure that their coffee beans are produced sustainably and they continuously have a supply. This is another example of, when we're talking about, once again, like the last slide on consumer behavior and the purchase decision process, how we're comparing the stages in a consumer and organizational purchase decision process. So if you look at it, there's two ways to look about it: a consumer purchase for a smartphone for a student, or an organizational purchase for an earbud headset for a smartphone. So if you look at the problem recognition, because remember the stages go in that order: problem recognition, information search, alternative evaluation, purchase decision, and then finally post-purchase behavior. So starting from the problem recognition, it's the smartphone for a student. Student doesn't like the features of a smartphone now owned and desires a new one. Then the student uses personal past experience in that our friends, ads, the internet, consumer reports to collect information and uncover alternatives. And then the alternative smartphones are evaluated. Remember the criterion set we looked at back a couple lessons ago. The basis of important attributes decided in a phone, and several stores are visited. Then, a specific brand of smartphone is selected, price is paid, the student leaves the store. And then post-purchase, the student reevaluates the purchase decision and may return the phone to the store if it's unsatisfactory or if it was just something that they didn't expect or don't like using. And so that's for a consumer purchase. For the organizational side, if you look at it, for a business in the cell phone market, marketing, research, and sales departments observe the competitors and they improve the earbud headsets for their smartphones. Think of the iPad Pro earbuds. The firm decides to improve the earbud headsets on its new models, which will be purchased from an outside supplier that just makes those earbuds. And then design and production engineers draft specifications for the earbud headsets. The purchasing department identifies suppliers of the earbud headsets because they have to look at cost, they have to look at who can create them for their product and pair well. And then purchasing and engineering personnel visit with the factories, the suppliers, and assess the facility, the capacity, the quality control, the financial status, the social responsibility. And then they drop any suppliers that don't keep up with these attributes. Then they use quality, price, delivery, and technical capability as key buying criteria to select a supplier. Then they negotiate terms and award a contract. So they evaluate, finally, after all that, when Apple chooses a supplier to make their earbuds, for this example, after they award the contract to that Chinese factory that makes them, they use in the post-purchase behavior decision process stage. They evaluate suppliers using a formal vendor rating system and notify a supplier of the earbud headsets that do not meet their quality standard because they're coming back defective, or people are buying them and they're like, well, the sound isn't great, or they're shorting out, or I don't know, they're just not working, and they want refunds or to switch it out for another model. So if the problem is not corrected, they drop the firm as a future supplier. Perfect example from end user buying the product, smartphone and earbud, to the organization making it. For example, the earbud headset for the smartphone. So organizational buying is broken up into the buying center, the buying committee, and the people in the buying center. So if you look at the buying center, it consists of the group of people in an organization who participate in the buying process and share common goals, risks, and acknowledge important to a purchase decision. The roles in the buying center are usually broken down in these 5 different ways. So you have your users, right? The people in the organization that actually use the product. For example, when we look back at the previous slides, we talked about that highlighter pen for office workers that help their productivity. Then you've got the influencers that define the specifications of what is bought. Example, for a company that needs to have employees using computers or laptops, you might want to have an IT manager who's the influencer to define the specs of the laptop or computer for their employees. You've got the buyers who have the formal authority and responsibility to select a supplier and negotiate terms. So the IT manager says all of our laptops need to be Core i7 or Core i9 for whatever reason. And the buyers in the company are going to find suppliers that sell Core i7 or Core i9 processor laptops or computers. Then you've got the deciders. They have the formal or informal power to select or approve the supplier that receives the contract. And then the gatekeepers. They control the flow of information in the buying center. So buying classes, they consist of 3 types of organizational buying situations. It's either a straight rebuy, a new buy, or a modified rebuy. So a new buy is the process. It's a lot to do with risk because you're buying something and you don't know how this is going to work for the organization or what's going to happen, or if it's something that is going to end up being productive and more efficient for your workers. So an example is Procter & Gamble acquiring Corning Incorporated for their fiber optic network. A straight rebuy is the reorder of products. Once again, example of office supplies and maintenance services. They're good. We like these pens. We like these highlighters. We like these, hand sanitizer and masks and so all that. We're just going to straight rebuy it again. And then modified rebuy, reorders with a larger scope of users in the organization. So now we increased our productivity. We made more money. We have no more office workers. So we might need to reorder the same stuff but at a higher quantity at a different discount, and may need to adjust the product where it worked for a couple people, but for a larger group it might be better to buy this type of pen or this type of highlighter because it's not only cheaper but it's more efficient to use. Or it could be a new model. The buying situation affects buyer center behavior in different ways, because if you look at the people involved in the buying center dimension, if it's a new buy, there's a lot of people that's usually involved when you're buying something new for the company to ask around to make sure if it's right for everyone. If it's a straight rebuy, it's only one person that's usually involved. We've already done it, we've already used it, it's fine, I'll just go ahead and buy it for everyone. And then a modified rebuy, you might go back and say, okay, well, now we got 100 employees instead of 10, and we were buying these at high quantity prices. Maybe we should go for a bulk discount and change up the product that we're using, and you might ask 2 or 3 people in the company and get them involved to purchase that. And so just like that, it goes down to the same exact way for the decision time, problem definition, buying objective, the suppliers considered, and the buying influence. And this is different ways in the buy class situation, depending on the new buy, straight rebuy, or modified rebuy, that the dimensions change and how it affects the buying situation. If you look at online auctions, you've got a traditional auction, which is by definition, an e-marketplace. It's an online auction which a seller puts an item up for sale, and would-be buyers are invited to bid in competition with each other. And then you have a reverse auction. In an e-marketplace, it's an online auction in which a buyer communicates a need for a product or service, and a would-be supplier are invited to bid in competition with each other. So 2 examples right here. Etsy's changed a bit, so they're more along with a traditional marketplace, but eBay is a perfect example of traditional where they place up an item and then everybody bids on that item and then someone eventually wins in a time period. And then you've got freelancer. A freelancer is, when we're looking at it, a way where I might get on there and say, okay, hey, I need someone to build this website for me. My budget is $2,000, and then place that posting out there, and multiple website designers will reach out to me and say, hey, I can do that for that price. And these are the things I would do for the site, or I can make this website, and these are the things that come with my service. So finally, to end this, we have to look at, and this is a great way to see visually how a buyer and seller participants and price behavior differ by the type of online auction. Same thing. So if you look at the top, starting from the top left, you've got one seller. And what happens in a traditional auction is that one seller, they will sell this limited edition, I don't know, Superman collectible. They don't make these anymore. They'll put that on eBay. And then there are going to be many buyers that, oh wow, that's a rare collectible item, and they will all bid on it. Reverse auction. Once again, there's going to be many sellers. So for example, there might be multiple people out there, let's say marketing companies that sell web design services. And they'll place that out there, and eventually there's only going to be one buyer or organization or company or person that's going to choose from these multiple sellers. And if you look at the price versus the number of buyers for this one, it's really directly correlated, because all of these sellers will be competing with price as a huge factor of whether that one buyer is going to go with them or not for their website services. So that's all I got for this lesson. Remember to make sure to do your discussions, weekly discussions. Remember to do your assignments and submit them. And I will see you in the next lesson.